Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Once again, thank you to everyone for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learn a little bit more about our program here at Clarkson and how you can start college a little bit early. My name is Matthew Rutherford, and I am the Director of Admission and Financial Aid for the Clarkson School. We are going to cover a number of different things here this evening. I guess just a couple housekeeping things. If you're here to learn really more about the university, then starting early, by early, I basically mean after the sophomore or junior year of high school. If you're a senior right now, this probably is not the session for you. So if you're looking to just learn a little bit about the university, highly encouraged to check out some of their virtual options or give the admissions office a call. They'd love to help you out. Um, Also, at the end of the session, we will be taking some different questions, maybe some concerns, and certainly happy to help out and address those at the end. So, general overview tonight. We're going to cover a number of different things. What the Clarkson School is, why the Clarkson School, what the application process looks like. We'll get into some financial aid, the high school diploma options, what happens after the Clarkson School, and then, like I said, we will take some questions from the chat. Okay, so what is the Clarkson School? We were actually founded in 1978, and we are the second oldest early college program in the country. If anyone's wondering, Bard at Simon's Rock in Massachusetts is actually the oldest. I think they were founded about 10 to 12 years before we were. It's essentially the opportunity for high school students who are talented and motivated to begin university studies here at Clarkson a year or perhaps maybe a couple of years early. We are not a feeder program into the university, although a number of our students do stay for the sophomore year, which we'll get into in a little bit. This is really just an opportunity for you to keep moving forward academically, rather than maybe going back to high school for another year or two. Of course, our students come from public schools, private schools, home schools. 60 to 70% do come from New York State. Typically, we see about a 3 to 4 hour radius with our students. So nothing out of the ordinary there. University very similar in that respect. But recent classes, basically a student from each state from around the country and 16 different countries from around the world. So I guess these bullet points are probably what I would like you to leave here with, if if nothing else. And really, the first one's the main one. Our classes, our students, they take the same exact classes as any other student here on campus. There is absolutely no difference between being in the Clarkson School here at the university and the classes that maybe you would take as, let's say, a typical freshman or even a typical sophomore for that matter. All the same classes. We do not have any high school classes. You are taking them shoulder to shoulder with all the other university students, all the same professors. Everything on the academic side is exactly the same. You are just doing it, of course, a year or two early. You are considered fully matriculated Clarkson University students. So because of that, you do have access to all of the same things that any other student has access to. All the same clubs, organizations, Division III athletics, intramurals, any of the social clubs, except for fraternities and sororities. We do not want our students to join fraternities or sororities, at least during the Clarkson school year. And the only other thing you cannot do is play hockey. So Division I hockey, men's and women's, that is not on the table if you are a Clarkson school student because of NCAA clearinghouse rules. It's not our rule, it's their rule. But aside from that, you have access to everything else any other student on this campus has access to. Our students do live in their own residence hall, and that is the main and kind of where it differentiates between being a quote unquote typical university student and being in the Clarkson School. So again, we'll kind of get into that a little bit. Why the Clarkson School? There are a number of different reasons, as you might imagine, but the overarching theme is that many students just find that being in a setting like this is probably something that is a bit more desirable and something that you probably feel that you're ready for, maybe earlier than most of your peers. I think a lot of students gravitate towards this opportunity because of the academic challenge that you're probably not going to find in a typical senior year of high school, or maybe even a junior year of high school, if maybe you've advanced a couple of years. The peer group, I think, is another, again, something our students probably gravitate a bit towards. Sick of the drama in the high school, kind of done with, maybe some of the different things that you're seeing every day in the high school environment, and you're ready to be around other students that maybe you just don't see every day. They tend to be a bit more focused, maybe a bit more driven, and to be around kind of that stimulating atmosphere is something that maybe is a bit more desirable than going back for another year of high school. Then the third option, or the third advantage, I guess, would be we do have a number of our students that come in and they know that this is not where they're going to be in terms of at Clarkson for the remaining 3 years. So they're not going to come back for their sophomore, junior, and senior year, but they want to use this environment and they want to use this opportunity as a way to build their resume, to continue building their portfolio, so you can present that to other universities, other colleges in the country and around the world, I guess, for that matter. And you're able to show them, look, this is what I did in high school, but this is what I'm capable of at the university level. This is what I was involved in at the university. This is how I did in the classroom, but these are maybe some of the projects that I worked on. This is some of the research that I did. Basically, opportunities to show these really competitive admission pools what you've done in this setting rather than everyone else who's just coming from, kind of a standard year of high school. And that does tend to resonate with admissions committees. So while you're with us, you're going to take approximately 32 to 35 college credits, basically a full freshman year or your full first year of college. And as I mentioned, you have access to everything every other student has access to. All the research, all the on and off campus experiences, all the team-based projects like our SPEED programs, which are our student projects for engineering experience and design. They're like our robotics team. There's a design, build, and fly team, a free air snowmobile, a solar car team. We have an Adirondack semester where you actually go into the Adirondacks for the entire semester, and you do research with our professors while you stay away from campus in that setting. So again, really kind of I don't know if I'd say unique, but opportunities that don't typically come about, I guess, in a high school atmosphere. Schools at Clarkson, again, fully matriculated Clarkson University student, you have access to the classes in the various departments. All the schools of engineering, science, arts and science, business, all of our pre-programs. A number of our students, as you might imagine, are looking at maybe a pre-med program, pre-law, pre-vet, pre-PT, pre-oc therapy, pre-PA. Those are tracks that you can start during your Clarkson school year, whether or not you plan on staying here at Clarkson or not. If you are looking at maybe moving on, we can look at some of the schedules, maybe in some of the classes that you'd be considering going on to at another college or another university, and we can try to mimic that schedule here as much as possible. So you're taking as many credits as possible with you, but you're also, again, being able to show them, this is what I did in a first year college experience at Clarkson. And again, that tends to resonate with those admissions committees. So as I mentioned, the residence environment is really what differentiates Clarkson School students from really, I guess, a typical first year student here at Clarkson. So we do have a separate residence, as you might imagine. Our students are a little bit younger, so of course it is a setting that I always say, I don't think we hover over our students, but it is certainly a more monitored setting. We do have curfews, we have quiet hours, we have leave forms. Leave forms basically, if you want to go somewhere for the evening, not a problem at all, but we would just need to hear from mom, dad, parent, guardian, someone that is basically going to tell us they know where you're going and when you're coming back. So in that respect, it is a more checks and balances type system, certainly than what you'd probably find in a first year of college. House advisors, mentors, usually our house advisors and mentors are students that were with us last year. Advisors are there to kind of help you through the process, to really try to kind of guide you, and someone you can go to if you have questions, concerns, things like that. This is actually a video that one of our students put together, one of our students from last year, that I think will give you a decent idea as to what our program has in terms of the residence side. It was actually a residence hall that was just remodeled over the summer. So go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so as you can see, a little bit different setup. Our dorms, like I said, just renovated over the summer. They are, I guess I would say they're private rooms in a sense that you have, it's you, your roommate, and of course you're sharing that one private bathroom, which is really nice compared to a typical first year experience where you'd be sharing a bathroom with probably 40, maybe 45 other students. So a much better setup. Academic support, application support, this is again, kind of another difference between being in the Clarkson School and being a first year student at the university, or probably at most universities. So you do have your own professional academic advisor. Brenda Kojan is our associate head of school. She's been with the program for overall probably 20 to maybe even 25 years now. So she will help guide you through the process, starting with your class scheduling over the summer prior to coming in to the program. She's going to work with you on, if you are looking at moving on to another school, she's going to work on your application with you. College workshops, resume building, doing mock interviews, helping you with your resume, and also helping you with your writing. She's seen a number of different students come through the program and go on to some pretty prestigious schools. So she's kind of seen what it really takes to, and how you can put your best foot forward and present yourself in a way that looks very attractive to some of these admission pools. We do have tutoring built into our program as well. You don't have to worry about going across campus and maybe looking for some additional support. So we have it set up. You can come into the office. We actually have a classroom built right into our office environment here, along with our 24-hour study lounge. and the times are all there. So basically, if you need help, you just drop into one of those sessions. If you do find that you need maybe something beyond that, then Brenda will also help you with maybe some private tutoring. Transitional programming, we have personal enrichment programs, professional development programs to kind of help you hone your organizational skills, your time management skills, maybe some study habits. So we're really trying to put you in a position so that obviously you're not just successful here with us, but you're also able to utilize some of those tools and some of those skills that you hone with us to move into that second semester, and then of course beyond into that sophomore year, whether that's here at Clarkson or it's somewhere else. So this is really just a slide to give you an idea. By no means, if you're, certainly a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower than what these averages present, don't worry about it. I always say we use a very holistic approach to an application review. We are going to take everything into consideration. Your GPA and really the classes that have yielded that GPA is kind of the starting point for us. We're going to look at your high school profile to give us an idea as to what you've had access to, what you've taken advantage of in the classroom and even outside the classroom, and then how well did you do in those classes? What's your guidance counselor saying about you, or your college counselor saying about you? What are your teachers saying about you? What were you involved in, maybe with clubs and volunteer work? Did you have a job? Those are the things that we really look for in our students. It's not so much, with a PSAT or an SAT or an ACT, for instance, what you do on a Saturday morning really isn't something that we put a lot of weight on. We want to know from some of the people who are recommending you, how they feel about what they see every day with your interactions, and how well they feel that you're prepared for an environment like this. Did you take advantage of honors program or AP programming, IB classes? And it does start with that high school profile, because some students have access to a number of those things, and other students maybe coming from a smaller school maybe don't have access to that. So we understand that. So we really do look at everyone individually. I do think this is a fairly telling slide, and each year our students tend to outperform their freshman or first year student counterparts. And it is not an apples to apples comparison, I understand that. But again, I think it's fairly telling that our students, for instance, last year, right around a 3.42 overall average GPA for our entire class, compared to maybe the freshman class, which is right around a 2.6 to a 2.7. So even though they are obviously a little bit younger, coming to campus and doing very, very well. So the admission process, very similar to really any college or any university you might be looking at. Application, of course, and keep in mind, everything can be done online. So there really isn't anything that you have to do or submit in terms of a paper copy. Everything can be done right through your application portfolio once you submit the application. Your essay, 250 to 300 words, can really be about anything. We do leave it very open because we want to give you that free rein to be able to show us or to tell us something that maybe we're not necessarily going to see in an application with maybe your recommendations. Maybe tell us why you want to be a part of an early college program, or perhaps a life-changing event, or a reason that maybe you're going into your major that you're really considering. So again, 250 to 300 words, it's not a lot. If you want to go beyond that, that's absolutely fine. I would probably cap it in that 500 to maybe 600 word range. But again, it's completely up to you what you'd like to tell us. High school transcript and secondary school report typically come from your guidance department, as well as 2 teacher recommendations. When you look at the application online, there's going to be a section where you're going to be able to put your recommenders. In that section, you're going to, of course, put all of your information for each person that you'd like to recommend you, your guidance counselor, your teachers, and also if you have a personal recommendation, you'll be able to put that in there as well. The email address that you input That is going to be what we use to generate an automatic email that will go to whomever you're asking to recommend you. So they're going to be able to take that email, there'll be a link, and they'll be able to click on that link and recommend you through that portal. What's nice about that is you'll be able to see in your status page or on your status page exactly when it was sent and then when we received it back. So if you see that you have sent it and maybe it's been 2 or 3 weeks and we didn't get anything back, then maybe we can go out and either resend it or at least explore as to why maybe we haven't received it at that point. Standardized testing, I started this for this year anyway. We are waiving this requirement due to COVID. So if you've taken standardized testing and you would like to share that with us, that's absolutely fine. There's actually going to be a section on your status page where you'll be able to answer a question, basically asking you whether or not you would like us to wait to receive the standardized testing scores before we review the application. So depending on your answer, we'll either move forward without them or of course wait for those results. It is absolutely not something that you have to submit this year. It is completely fine. It's not going to look negative on you if you do not submit standardized testing. As I mentioned previously, we're really going to put more emphasis on the other portions of your application anyway. But if you'd like us to see those, then certainly fine. We can wait until they come in. The interview is optional, although it is highly recommended. It's another layer for us to get to know you a little bit better, to see if this is a program that could benefit you, and really to have all your questions answered as well. So nothing that you have to do, but again, highly recommended. So the timelines. The deadline to submit an application is actually June 1. So there's certainly plenty of time. I typically don't recommend waiting until that point. It's a deadline that we put in place because so many students find out about this opportunity a little bit later in their junior year. So we extend it out a little bit longer, certainly much longer than a university timeline. Part of the reason why I normally encourage not to wait is because we use rolling admission, and rolling admission is a little bit different than what the university uses. And it basically just means that once we have all of your application materials, we're going to let you know whether or not you are accepted within 5 to 7 days or 5 to 7 business days. It gives you that much more time to, of course, review your financial aid package, see what your scholarships are going to look like, and then decide whether or not you want to come in. And then moving off of that, if you do decide this is something that you'd like to do and you'd like to submit a deposit to reserve your spot, then you can start planning through the rest of the year. Whether that means taking some additional classes to perhaps exhaust more diploma requirements, or to continue building on your foundation and maybe taking a few classes over the summer prior to coming in to put you in a much better position to be successful once you've come onto campus. So there's definitely benefits in applying a little bit earlier. If you want to wait, that's absolutely fine. But if you know this is something that you're going to at least want to have on the table, I typically recommend the earlier the better. The honors program, their review starts after the January 15th deadline. So if you're interested in honors, then the 15th is something that I would ask you to keep in mind. Our students, in terms of our Clarkson School students, can continue to be considered for honors, provided that they have space available after January 15th. So it's not a hard deadline for our students. However, I do like our students to be able to be looked at and considered with all of the other initial applicants. So if honors is something that you'd like to be considered for, honors is basically research taken to another level. So you start doing research even over the summer prior to coming into the Clarkson school year. So if you know that research is something you want to be involved in, you might want to look at the honors program. For our students, it's actually a two-step process. So you submit your Clarkson School application, gain your admission into the program, and then we take your Clarkson School application and put that in front of the honors director and ask them if they feel that, yes, honors is something that you would be a good candidate for and you would benefit from. And if we're all in agreement, then I would provide you with instructions on what you need to do next to apply to honors. So again, it's kind of a two-step process for our students, but January 15th is probably the date that I would absolutely be looking at if you want to be considered with the initial round of honors applicants. So the high school diploma is, of course, one of the main talking points, and rightfully so. This is obviously something that you've been working towards for a number of years. And there's basically four main options. You can either come in already possessing the diploma and graduate early, like a number of students do. You can complete it in terms of complete the requirements for the diploma within that first semester with us, or complete the classes that you would need for the diploma during the entire year, or you can simply take the task. The task is the New York State equivalency exam. We set that up for our students in the September timeframe normally, and then you would basically take a 2-day exam and you would have the equivalency diploma from New York State. We've never had a student fail that exam, so pretty straightforward. It's really the first 3 points that I would probably encourage you to look at right now. And most of our students fall within those first 3. This year's class, for instance, we have just about 70 students in the program. We only had 9 students actually take the equivalency exam this year. So a little more than 60 students ended up doing one of the first 3 options. The first option, completing the diploma requirements prior to enrollment. If you know that Clarkson is where you're going to want to be for your sophomore, junior, and senior year after the Clarkson School, then completing the diploma requirements and obtaining the diploma early prior to coming in is typically what I would recommend, because it just makes it a little bit easier for you. You don't have to worry about taking any classes that need to be utilized towards the diploma requirement. We don't have to worry about adding those to your schedule. So that's the cleanest option, if only you know that you're staying here. If you think that you might be moving on to another school after the Clarkson School, so you're going to be applying and probably moving on to another college or university, then option 2 or 3, so completing during the first semester or during the first or the entire year, is the way that I would recommend going. And that's simply because of really 2 main things. If you apply as a student who has already obtained the diploma prior to coming in, and this is a rule of thumb. So you've already obtained the diploma, you come to us, and then during the year you're applying to other schools, you're typically going to be applying, and I say typically, and it is really the rule of thumb. There are exceptions to this, but for the most part, you're going to be applying as a transfer student. We really don't want you applying as a transfer student. That's because we find that, especially, and I'm talking about the really competitive admission pools, there tends to be fewer spots available in those admission pools, and there tends to be fewer financial aid dollars available to transfer students. So we would rather you not apply as a transfer. What you can do is apply as an advanced standing student, and you can do that by completing the diploma requirements during the first semester with us or during the entire year, because you would have started with us without having completed the diploma. So the rule of thumb is that you will apply to these other schools as an advanced standing student. That simply means that you go into an admission pool against other students that, or with other students, I should say, that are coming out of their senior year of high school. So again, you kind of have a leg up in that pool where you can show what you've done at this level in addition to what you did in high school. So that allows you to stand out a little bit in those pools. But you're also looked at for financial aid just like any other incoming student at that university, which there tends to be more financial aid dollars as well. Don't let the advanced standing tag fool you. It's basically a way to gain an acceptance, and then the registrar at that school will look at your credits from Clarkson and decide how many they're going to bring in, and then in turn, what cohort you're going to go into. So you could certainly still go into your sophomore cohort depending on the number of credits, but you're applying as an advanced standing student rather than a transfer. So it's really the best of both worlds in doing it in that scenario. So nothing you need to think of, or even, I shouldn't say think about, but nothing you need to decide on right now. We can go through this if you have questions, concerns, but these are really the four main ones. If your high school does not allow you to remain duly enrolled and allow you to complete these last couple of classes while you are here with us, and then transfer those back to the high school for the diploma, then the task is the option that our students will go with. So we're finding more and more now. I've been in this position for about 13 to 14 years. When I first started, we didn't see as many high schools willing to do this. Now, because of the distance learning options, because of so many students are taking classes at maybe some universities or colleges in their area, it's not such an uncommon thing. So particularly public schools tend to be very receptive for students doing the last couple of classes here and then still being able to obtain the home high school diploma and then even go home and walk for graduation in that June timeframe. But if they don't let you do that, they don't want you to do that for whatever reason, the task is an option just as a means to an end so that you do have a high school diploma. The classes that our students normally take, most of the time you need a government economics, a half a year, a PE, and an English 12. This is actually a form that we're going to provide you that you can take to your guidance department, and they fill this out, provide this back to us, actually to Brenda. You can see her name and her email here. They provide this back to her, and then she starts your scheduling based on what they're telling us. So it's more of a checks and balances system. So she's making sure she's taking care of the classes and building those into your schedule, the ones that you need, and then everyone's agreeing that, okay, once you take these classes and take those back to the high school, then you're going to be able to complete your diploma requirements. Financial aid. I'm not going to get into the weeds too much with financial aid, but just know this. You are, as a Clarkson School student, eligible for all of the same Clarkson scholarships and grants as any other student coming into Clarkson. All the same merit funding, scholarships, grants, you will have access to in the Clarkson School, regardless of your high school diploma option. Whether you come in with it, or you complete it here while you're with us, or you take the equivalency exam. Does not matter, it's our money, we can do what we want with it. You're eligible for it regardless. New York State TAP, if you are from New York State, this is something that you have access to because we're going to have you take what's called an ability to benefit test. The ability to benefit test you'll take during orientation or the week of orientation. It's a very straightforward exam, and it makes you eligible for any New York State TAP funding that you are eligible for based on the FAFSA form and the New York State TAP application. So Clarkson funding, New York State TAP funding, you have regardless of high school diploma option. The federal aid, which is typically loans, sometimes our students do qualify for the grant funding as well. This is a little bit different. Federal government basically says that you can't be in two places at once, so they're not going to give the high school money for you to sit there every day if you're not truly there and you're actually here with us. So in order to make sure that you can take that federal money while you are here with us that you qualify for, we simply have you complete the diploma requirements in the first semester. So by doing that, we'll make sure you can take your federal funding in the spring semester, and to make sure your balance stays exactly the same for both semesters, I would simply take more of the Clarkson funding and move it from the spring to the fall semester. So your overall funding stays exactly the same. Your balance for, of course, both semesters is exactly the same. It's just the timeline for which that money is dispersed changes a little bit. So anything that you would be eligible for anyway, you're going to have access to as a Clarkson School student. Once you have the federal aid in place in that spring semester and you completed your requirements, you have all of that, and then you have all of your Clarkson funding and your New York State funding anyway. Again, if there are questions, concerns about that, happy to address those as well. So the costs, same as the university, because as I mentioned a couple of times, our students are considered fully matriculated Clarkson University students. So taking all the same classes, access to everything that any other student has access to. So of course, Clarkson charges the same. As I mentioned, you do have all the same Clarkson scholarships and grants. Clarkson School Ignite Presidential Fellowship. This was new as of last year, and we're continuing this on. So the Ignite Presidential Fellowship is a full tuition scholarship. There's only one available for the Clarkson School students, but it actually works out better that if you're applying with the other Clarkson School students, which there's about 125 to 130, rather than applying with the university students, first year university students, there's about 3,500 to 4,000. So the ratio, obviously a little bit better, percentages to maybe obtain this, the fellowship, a little bit better as well. As I mentioned, full tuition scholarship. The deadline to apply for that is not until April 15th of 2021. So plenty of time to do that. First step is to apply to the program. Second step is to apply for the Presidential Fellow. You will have a checklist item on your Clarkson School application status page where you're going to see this Presidential Fellow application, and it'll guide you through what you need to provide to be considered for that award. We normally let students know, at least last year we let the student know in the early May timeframe whether or not they received that. All accepted students to the Clarkson School, this is not the university, but all of our accepted Clarkson School students receive at least $30,000 in their financial aid offer, regardless of anything. If you gain your acceptance, you will have at least $30,000 in funding, regardless of need, regardless of merit. If you fill out the FAFSA, if you do not, you're going to have $30,000 at minimum. Most of my students receive more than $30,000, and that's actually funding that you will continue to receive during your time at Clarkson. So if you decide to stay for your sophomore, junior, and senior year, it will turn into basically a $120,000 scholarship at minimum. But like I said, it's really a starting point. Most of our students actually receive a little bit more than that. All right, so just to kind of close up here, after the Clarkson School, it's pretty simple. You either come back for your sophomore year or you go on to another school. Historically, it is about 50-50. Since my time here, it's probably about 60, anywhere between 60 and 65% of our students are staying at Clarkson for at least their sophomore year. Depends on a few different things, really. Financial aid is actually a big one. I think most students, when they are able to compare financial aid packages, they find that Clarkson is very generous with the amount of funding that they've offered. And then, of course, the resources, the major, I think sometimes students are surprised with what's available to them here. And when they find that during the Clarkson school year, rather than maybe going on to a school where they always maybe thought they were going on to, maybe to stay here and be more of that big fish in a small pond, and then perhaps going on for grad work elsewhere. Now, that's certainly something that a number of our students have done. But for the students who have moved on, this is not an exhaustive list. It's just more so probably in the last maybe 5 to 10 years. So again, I'm not going to read down through the list, but just to give you an idea, some fairly impressive schools. Basically, if you look at US News and World in the top 20 schools on there, we've sent at least one student onto every single one of those schools. So our students come in, they do well, and they've been able to go on to some pretty good places. So, so here's my contact information. If anyone has any questions, any concerns, if you'd like to talk further and talk through any of this stuff, I know this is, you know, a lot in maybe a, you know, 40 minutes or 45-minute time frame. So happy to talk through any of what I mentioned. So that being said, we can go ahead.